This is the Support Podcast with Mike and Ryan. What is going on, Mike?
Hey Ryan, how's it going, man?
Hey, buddy.
All right, so we weren't going to say it's been a while, so I'm going to say it anyway. It's been a
It's
little
been a
while,
while.
but we're going to head right into it and talk a little bit about leadership again. We have a guest on today with Hector from a different part of the branch of our organization, but a new leader to the org, and we just want to go over some, kind of what he has gone through and his experience overall. Hey Hector, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, Mike. Ryan, appreciate it being here, man. It's awesome to kind of hop on. Love that you guys are doing this.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. I did a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, and I don't even do most of it. It's usually Ryan that does all the work. So thank you, Ryan, for doing all the
Trying to
work.
push all the work onto Mike.
Yeah.
But in our defense, we basically did a whole podcast before we did this podcast. We were talking for a while about different topics, and now that we're doing this, I'm excited because we're all warmed up on our talking.
That's a good point. I like that. It feels good. My throat feels good. I feel excited, ready to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about intro to leadership and what it takes to be a junior leader. Hector, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory of kind of where you started and kind of how you got into the industry in general, and just give us a little heads up on the start of how you got into leadership.
So I think we'll cut the story a bit short. I could go on for hours. I've basically had every job under the sun. One that visited college to kind of go back that way, and just decided that very early on that wasn't for me. Kind of back in 2005 or so, and wasn't really the popular option back then. Move on forward a bunch of years. Sometimes I've considered like the lucky one because I took that decision because you can grow like your technical skills, you can grow like your soft skills. And that kind of led me to the job before where I'm at, which was sort of a director position, actually, in a very small company, kind of leading maybe just one person. And there I was able to just kind of begin the process of what it's like to just delegate or just what it's like to deal with someone else. And then from there, I got the opportunity through actually my brother-in-law, and that kind of gave me a heads up that there was this company looking for somebody and was strictly a technical role. And I'm like, I'm not at that level yet. And he just kind of gave me the confidence that sometimes you don't have, borrowed his confidence in me to kind of give it a shot. And I'm like, all I know, dude, is maybe customer service, maybe, so he's like, dude, there's high school kids doing this kind of kind of in a way.
And that makes you feel good too, I'm sure. Some high school kids will do it.
But high school will do it. I'm like, okay, dude, if you trust in me that much, I will go for it. And kind of landed in my current role. And then just 3 years later, kind of landing where I'm at now in this transition.
Nice. So how long were you in your previous role before you got into a junior leader position?
I would say about 2 years, maybe
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
And how long are you in your leadership position now?
This would be probably about just coming up also in a year, because I've been in overall three in March, I would say, right? Time flies. We're in May, so yeah.
Yeah.
Over a year now.
Wow. So you're heading out of junior leadership, right?
Going back to that director position.
Right. Exactly. Over a big group of people. So what? Give us a little bit of what the difference is, your day-to-day before you became a leader, and how you prepared, and then what are the transition to get into leadership that you had to do, maybe personally outside of work, and then inside of work, how did you handle it?
So coming into the role I was in before, the only skill I had was, and I kind of think it was from Will Smith or something, that it's like, you've got to be the guy that's on the treadmill, and either you just keep going or you die or something like that. I'm probably killing the saying. That was my only weapon that I had. I'm not as technically talented as the people here, so I just have to put in just double the effort. So just put that, and then rely on sort of the soft skills of just, I've always been one to really care and be empathetic about like the other person on the other side. Because back in the day, we had our own company with my brother-in-law, and any little help that we could get, somebody, hey, shot us a referral or gave us something that could give us an edge to maybe get a new client, and we get stuck, somebody would help us. It meant so much. It meant that we could survive another day. Right. So that's what I had also. Hard work and sort of learn the role as fast as I can, be careful with the other person, like caring with the other person on the other side, show that above anyone else, and I think maybe I could head somewhere. Then, landed to where I'm at now, and the transition that I'm noticing that you have to go through is from taking care of the job when you start and you're performing it, to now taking care of the people that take care of the job.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And that transition, I think, is the toughest one to do and to learn. And that's where I'm at, hoping that I'm doing a good job at it.
So when you first started, what was the most eye-opening or the most rude awakening for you as a new leader, coming from a colleague or just a regular associate, or however you would want to put
individual
that,
contributor?
There you go.
Yeah.
To going into leadership where you are working with those people to help improve their day.
Yeah. So the toughest thing I would say for me, first off, like let's say that at the moment of transition there is, before I could just DM someone and say, hey man, I saw you mess this up, to kind of help them too. And just know that if I send that exact DM right now and say, hey, do that, like it just immediately might be perceived as, oh, he's the boss now, he's giving me an order, where it's really coming from the same place, but being now in a different spot could be misconstrued in a way. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of been the toughest thing to handle. But other than that, I'd say just being more helpful to them. Basically, if given the chance to jump in and solve an issue, 100% taking care of it, taking care of them, making a learning experience, making it a positive experience every time we have an exchange with someone, is what's sort of allowing me to be seen as that leader first.
Right.
Then I can send you those messages and just know that it's coming from the same place.
Building that trust up.
Building that trust that you can reach out to me. I'm going to reach back out to you to help any kind of time you need assistance. I'm there, and building the trust 100%. From a colleague to a leader, that transition is, I think, a slow one. And it's probably taken this whole year to just, okay, we're actually getting here.
Being the go-to guy.
I agree. I think there's a space for sure that changes as you start turning into what would be a leader or management, or however you want to put that. Because I think when it comes to the word leader, that's kind of intangibles. A lot of times we try to use the word leader as just somebody who's in charge of other people. Usually that's a manager, and then a leader is someone who tries to take the people that are in front of him or behind him and help lead them and move them to where they need to, or where within his realm can get them to go to be the most successful within themselves. Because I think that's a big part of it is, I'm a big sports guy, so I can always go back to my sports background is, how do you identify ways to make people better? How do you identify and then work with those people to help them just be successful? It's harder to go from a non-leader or a non-manager to a manager without having some level of soft skills as a leader that you possessed when you were that individual, as you said, single performer or whatever you want to call it.
Individual contributor,
yeah. And you want to make sure that you know what you possess and what people see in you, so that you can actually grow into that. Because I believe, and I can't speak for you, Hector or Ryan, but I know for me personally, I can count on my hands and my toes the amount of people that helped carry me to where I am now. And by that I mean over the last 20 years, from job to job, or from individual instance with a person, to help me and push me to where I need to be, and give me that confidence to be like, well, you know what? Just like you said, I'm pretty sure I can't do this. And everyone around you's like, yes, you can. I know you can. And at that point, you're like, all right, I think I can do this then. And at some point, you have to believe them and take the pride in yourself and understand that you do possess the ability to think outside of your normal box, because that's the thing that pushes people or keeps them contained and doesn't let them grow mentally. Doesn't matter what position you are, which is funny that we just talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't think it matters what position you're in. I think you can grow and show your leadership skills or learn leadership skills in that position that you're in to be able to get you where you need to go or however you want to go. So to lead that into our next question, what do you think that your soft skills that you possessed in that current role or your previous role that propelled you here, and then what have you learned and what have you been trying to focus on to get better at?
So what I focus on is really the whole time is in being able to seeing little things that maybe they did right or maybe they did wrong, and approaching that in a way that it can be always, when it comes to conversing with that person, that is constructive. And just learning that dynamic, it's like everything is such a crucial conversation when you're going to talk to someone in a different role. And the focus is always, coming from a good place. As for that, the soft skill learning now, I think that is the most important to me, which is really, the hardest one that I need to learn, which is just, how to talk to them from this angle, make sure it's constructive, and give them feedback in the best way that can propel them to keep doing what they're doing. They're already an amazing group of people. And also the toughest thing to learn as well, like you said, is just get that confidence and have it in yourself that you're here for a reason. And that's something that even beginning to, my early days in my previous role, 100%, and I don't know how many people I've told this, that I would put on the company shirt and just feel like, I don't even know why I'm wearing the shirt right now. I don't fit in with these guys.
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly.
It's
like,
very, very common. Yeah.
That feeling, walking around with the shirt on, is just like, I'm hoping that they can't really see what's happening, or somehow we made it in here. And I think it's the same with leadership. When you step in, it's like, okay, I was chosen for this role.
Yeah.
I don't. They know
they're gonna see right through me. They're gonna see that I don't know what I'm doing or something like that. That's anxiety.
When I first started, and I'll tell you, we're very fortunate. We work at a place that gives us free shirts. So our collared shirts, we feel real comfortable in those shirts. But I will say, when I first stepped into a leadership role, the first thing I was offered in suggestion was listen. Don't be the first to speak in those meetings right off the bat. Listen, and then when you feel comfortable and confident, then start to take in what they say, and then start to regurgitate, figure out what it is that they are actually coming at you with, and what they actually mean behind what they're saying. Because something I'm learning more and more is patience is a virtue. It is really important in these type of roles, because, and it doesn't matter if it's a technical leadership role, a junior leadership role, or the CEO of a company. If you don't have patience and you don't have the ability to see the whole, I'm going to use sports, the whole ball field, from a 1,000-foot, 10,000-foot height, you're not going to see the whole picture, and you're not going to understand that even though the guy in left field thinks that he's in the right position, that dude is facing the wall and he's in the corner. That is not the way he's supposed to be, but he thinks he's right. He thinks he's in the right spot, or she thinks she's in the right spot. And we need to make sure that they are taken care of, because that's the really, we start, I'm going to say I started from a spot where you blame people. You come to a spot where you're like, why aren't you doing the work that I'm doing? Or why aren't you doing, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do to help the organization or whatever? I always came from a spot when I was growing up that my dad always taught me, you do your work. You put your head down and you do your work. You don't cause problems. You don't cause strife by raising your hand and saying, hey, I find inconsistencies with this, or I think this should be better. You just put down your head and you work, and you don't cause a stir. And that's just kind of how it was. And if there was, you get away from it so that people don't see you in that stir. And it was just that was a fight or flight type of syndrome for them, because they came from a different country and they needed to survive in this climate. Well, now I'm here and I'm a grown up, and I have to figure out a way to handle my business as well. And that's really tough when you come from a spot where it's like, mind your business, mind your P's and Q's, and make sure you just put your head down and do your work. And then you go to an organization where they're like, your voice, is important, and
Yeah.
you need to talk about the things that are that you think are going to be better and should be better. And you're like, okay, well, how do I do that? But also mind my P's and Q's. So turns
Yeah,
out,
I was gonna say it really. From hearing all this, it really comes down to as a leader having balance, being able to juggle the balance of being able to have the 10,000 foot view, but also being able to get into the weeds and know what the other colleagues are dealing with. And Hector, as you pointed out, saying the right things, like being able to take a step back and make sure that you communicate effectively and don't handle things reactively, because the mindset should be that if they're failing, it's my fault. I'm not doing something correctly. I'm not listening to them correctly. I'm not saying the right things, because you can't say exactly the same thing to every person. You know what I
right.
mean? Like what I say to you, Hector, may not work. I can't like say the exact same words to Galati. Like he's just, it won't resonate the same way. You know, we were just talking about leaders saying things in certain ways that don't resonate well to different people. And what I heard in the scenario we were discussing felt fine to me. I completely agree with it. But to other people, they have a completely different perspective. And
Yeah.
to them, there's offense taken, right? So it's really important to be able to listen and kind of get the different perspectives. And that's where I think moving into leadership position, the first thing I've heard a lot of leaders do at our company is they do the personality tests for everybody, so you know what type of person that they are, and you know how they work, and then you can be able to work around what their needs are. And then, because your goal as a leader, it was funny, I was thinking of this. Think of World of Warcraft. You've talked about this before in the podcast. Talked about hobbies. You go from, as an individual contributor, being like the damage dealer in the front lines, to now being the support in the back lines. And if that person dies or fails, you fail. Everybody fails. So your job is to support them as much as possible as a leader to make sure that they're successful. Because if they are not successful, you are not successful. And it's a completely different mindset.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because I think to that point, when you're the front lines in a video game like that, and I've played those video games like we talked about.
Yeah, you only see
When
this.
that's exactly it. You tunnel vision so hard. I remember being the guy in the front, and you're stabby, 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 and all of a sudden you have to heal people, and there's 15 people you have to heal, and your stabby, stabby mentality is not going to work for healing.
You be able to
15
step
people.
back.
Exactly, and that's a bigger deal. So it goes back to how do you evolve. I try to look at it as a relationship with each person. It's just something that I have always done. I have a little bit of a psychology mind. It's just my mentality. So I try to go into every one of my positions where I'm meeting a colleague or a client or a partner or whatever you want to call the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of the line or across the seat from you, is that person is in a relationship with you for whatever amount of time that you are dealing with the stuff that you're dealing with, because you are conversing, you're trying to come up with some common goal. And if you are coming at it from a selfish standpoint, or my idea is the right idea or whatever,
Ego,
yeah, that ego is going to get in the way. And if you don't stop it or don't check it, or you don't learn how to handle that ego, it's going to get in the way. And conversely, if you don't have a good ego or don't have an ego, it's the opposite end, and you can't, then you need to start thinking of ways to be able to show yourself and be proud of yourself that you do command that attention and you deserve the ability to be heard. And that stuff will propel you to be a little bit better of a leader every day as you listen more, take their advice or suggestions. How did you adapt to that? How did you learn as you were going through training, and what did you learn to adapt to those type of scenarios that were a little more practical?
Yeah. So for me, I think I've always, at least in this point, leaned on being being humble in the sense of really highly respecting the people that I'm working with, and they know that I feel that way because since day one, it's been there. And that's the good thing, at least in the sense of having transitioned from a regular, the position that we started to leadership, is that they know I've been in the weeds. And the first thing I sort of mentioned was, I'm still in the weeds. I'm just supporting your work at that point, and just having that great respect for what they do and how talented they are, transmitting that to them, and just communicating then after making that clear. Letting them know that they really are a talented person that I lean on and respect their work. and that conversation, just then I could say whatever it is that we're going to talk about, but that's been established first. That's what I've leaned on most now, because it's the process, again, like you mentioned earlier, Ryan, which is earning the trust. And it takes time. And I think I could do better myself. And that's something that I'm going to work on now that you mentioned, Mike, and maybe doing some sort of, meeting them one-on-one, and let's have a 15-minute chat.
That's big.
To,
that's something that I've learned is huge, because it just like you said, it's huge. You're gonna have times where, and I also am fortunate, because I think that all of us have been fortunate to where we have grown into a position from another position. And with that being said, the people around you know that you have also been in the weeds, just like you said. You've also been down and dirty, working all hours of the night, all times of the year, all times of the day. And it doesn't matter, because they have done it, you have done it, they know what it's like. We can't talk and touch on right this second on what it's like to have to go into a role as a leader when you have colleagues or clients or whoever that doesn't know that you have empathy for them. And how do you show that empathy? Because I think a big part of that is we are very fortunate in this front. All of us have kind of worked very, very closely and pretty well with either the people above or below us, or around us. And we work in a climate where you feel pretty good about doing that stuff, generally speaking. So it is a change if you have to go in and you're a new hire as a leader and you come in and do that. So I would say, to anybody that's going out there, is to understand where your people are like, go down in the trenches with them for a couple of days and see what it's like and what they're feeling. Because if you don't, like we said before and earlier, if you're going to lose touch with them, and you're not going to be able to get that trust back, because they will never know or never realize that you understand where they're coming from, and then you understand how to get out of it. And that's when they trust your leadership is, okay, you're going to do the work, man. You're going to put in the effort. You have to be able to do this to get from point A to point B. I'm going to support you by giving you the tools that you need, and empathizing with them the best you can, but also understanding where they are and what they're doing in their spot. It's one of the toughest things that I'm trying to learn as well. And, being I'm not say a newish leader. I've done this for a little bit, but I'm still learning. I'm still growing. And even if I've done this for 20 years, it doesn't matter. You're still trying to figure out what's new, because when we were younger and 16 years old in that lower level, doing the thing that just to get us money to get, to go buy what we wanted to hang out with our friends, up till 20 years later, when you're doing this because you care about other humans being successful. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is I don't care about anything else except for making my people successful and where they need to go, where they need to go. So it's a change. It's a change of, and as you step through that and understand that, you change with it. And it's something that I am thankful for. It's something that I would assume that all of us at some point had to do. If you guys want to touch on your personal experience on,
I want to add something
to that. Yeah.
You mentioned about being able to get in the weeds. I think it's important to be physically there too. I know that we're in a remote environment now, but not everybody listening may be in a remote environment, and eventually we may not be in a remote environment one day. It's important to be physically with the people that, as a leader, if you're up in the 10,000 foot view doing the different things all the time, or you're managing all these people, it's important to sometimes be able to get there next to the people and do the work with them sometimes, so that you can know what they're literally going through and they can see that too. I remember I had a time where I was working at an old MSP before I started working for this company, and I remember the CEO came out one day and just did tickets with us right behind me, and he was technical, fortunately, and I remember that feeling, like just having him there. I was able to, I knew in the back of my head that I could go to him, and like he knew he had done it in the past, obviously, but I was able to, the next day, if I wanted to, be able to go to him, and he knows exactly what I'm going through. Hey, look how many tickets we have. Look at this issue that we're dealing with here, because he was able to take the time to get down there. And then you also need to be able to do the opposite. You also have the leaders or the team leads that never get away from the weeds. They're so used to being the individual contributor. That's where they feel comfortable. They never actually, they stare at an issue, they get the tunnel vision, and they never actually take a step back. I mean, like physically step back from an issue and be able, because even doing this, it changes your perspective than like being so close, and it's important to do that and to be able to know when to do that. So I wanted to emphasize that part.
probably happens a lot when you are stepping in, is this can go to your next question, Hector, is, when I became a team lead from a colleague, I had to learn how to not be a colleague anymore. I had to learn how to just not do tickets and not just work tickets. And there are some people that don't get out of that. So did you have any trouble getting out of the colleague mentality as you stepped into this role? And what changes did really were an awakening for you?
Yeah, so because again, it's kind of a transition of leadership still, I'm kind of in a spot where it's still like 50-50 in a sense. You're still sort of in the weeds, and then the other stuff becomes the more managerial, administrative, supporting them kind of role. So it totally felt weird in the sense of switching that mentality of, because it's easy, like you said, when in the weeds, where you just work, day goes by, and then you're done. But now it's okay, having to organize your time and then being able to work on this at this particular time and go work on, improvement over here, feedback over there, and manage that. So time management, I think, is one of the things that I've had to improve a little bit on, always have to improve upon. And those are the skills that I think mostly have changed. Just putting out the work that I'm doing with responding and communicating with clients, to now focusing on communication, time management, which is kind of still of a work in progress. But it's been great to learn all these new skills, really. And so far, I think so good. We're gonna find out.
Awesome. I got a question here. You're talking about kind of being able to prioritize, right? And that was something that we were going to touch on within this spot here. How do you handle not feeling overwhelmed? Like, how do you be able to be an individual contributor and a leader and be able to prioritize all these things? And you were talking about struggling with time management. What do you do to keep from feeling overwhelmed? Or if you do get overwhelmed, what do you do to get out of that?
So in the sense of the work itself, it's really a simple hack. It's just kind of using your calendar and then blocking out those times.
Sure.
And it's something that's been working. And that's something I employed from sort of, I would say, first month in, just because I know time management is not my forte there. It's just, I got to do that more now. So just blocking out a calendar and able to say from X time to X time, I'm going to do this, tunnel vision there. And this is where we're doing the busy work. Then we have another block of time later where I'm going to go ahead and tap in, and tackle the administrative stuff and do that. And then within those things that you're doing, first the work, we're doing kind of helping clients and tickets and all that. So I started sort of a system of priorities, which was if we're working on stuff that is urgent, then label that as urgent, tackle that first thing in that time block, then go on to working on whatever else that might be a high priority. Mm-hmm. Whatever you don't get to, just sort of update it, do something and then move it up to a high priority for you to tackle tomorrow. And that's for tomorrow's time block, because now we're going on to the administrative tasks. So in a combination of calendar blocks to work on your specific different tasks through the day, kind of segment it, the work is priorities, the administrative more of just kind of to-dos. So you're still doing time management, but it's different. Here is priorities, here is to-dos, and tackling those in your particular order. And then in between is random things that come through the day. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's just sort of, like you say, kind of stepping back, looking at things that you already got going on throughout the day, reorganizing as needed, and just know that you can't, sometimes stepping back is scary because you go look back, you're like, oh my God, look at all this stuff that I have to do. But if you then zoom in, just look at everything right back in, and then tackle one, tackle two, because you already organized that. It's preset. So it's just focusing on what's in front. Do this, then do this, then do this. And that sort of works on both roles, in the weeds and leadership. Yeah.
So you're basically pointing out the fact of having the preparation. When you take the time to prepare, then you're not having to react to things in the future. You know what I mean? And that will be able to keep you from being overwhelmed.
And they see it too. Cool. Colleagues see that as well, because they know that you're prepared with them. it's always a really good thing to know that, again, you're not alone as a team. Either whether you're a team lead or whether you're whatever it is, a manager or the technical team lead. It doesn't matter. You're never alone in these organizations. That you always have people around you to be able to help you and to assist you. And if you don't feel that way, and there's some type of silo or there's something going on there, then there is definitely some work to do. And that is something that I think that is really important, we're not, we don't just stay steadfast because we think that this is okay, but that if you see something that needs to be looked at, or just, again, like you said, from a different perspective, whether it's 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet, or whether it's just looking over there this time, it doesn't matter. It's knowing that you have the ability to look at a different perspective and that you're not alone. I think the biggest thing that I've seen, whether it was from managers, leads, or whatever, is that they get stuck and they get frozen. I used to do that a lot when I was a team lead more often when I first started, because you're so overwhelmed right in the beginning. You think that everything is a fire, everything is a priority, and it turns out that it is not that way. You have to find that good balance. You have to find that that what works for you and what works for your team. And I do implore you, for sure, I know that you mentioned it earlier, definitely take time. And anybody that is in a leadership position, even if it's a technical, even if it's a team lead, even if it's just somebody that's doing something on the side for a manager real quick or a team lead real quick, is take it seriously and take time to meet with the other colleagues or other people to show that you listen to other people. I think that's really important to understand, is that you take opinions and you take people's experiences, because if you don't and you think that your experience is the most important and your answer is always the most important, you're probably not going to
people will see that. People will see that right away. It only takes like one mistake of that, and they're like, oh, this guy's not actually listening to what I'm saying. I'm trying to talk to him about something important, and he's being and he's on his phone or he's texting. Like, you need to be able to show to the people, like, the perception is really important.
Yeah, and going back to the point that you mentioned, right, and us being sort of remote now and all that, this transition has happened in a remote environment.
Right.
So it's been a challenge in the sense that it's not as easy sometimes when you go and try to message somebody and you see that they have a block in the schedule. So I gotta say, as a junior leader here, like, I haven't had the chance to just we bump into the hall and let's go take a 10-minute walk. And
it's gotta be deliberate now.
It's got to be deliberate. It's got to be planned, and that's something that I can definitely go ahead and improve on.
Right. Yep. Hey, every day we work a little bit more, and that's the stuff when you start seeing it. Something that I have learned a little bit over time is it's not a bad thing to be kind of put in your place a little bit. If you take it with a grain of salt and take it with, okay, that's a learning experience.
You own it, yeah.
For the people around me, exactly. Because here's the thing: is when you get into meetings and you start realizing that other people and you might be getting defensive, you're not really getting you're not getting much work.
Everybody
done.
sees that.
Yep.
Everybody sees that you're not taking ownership of it. And it's a bad look.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up here because we are heading towards the end of our time. But I just want to go through. This is something a little bit different, a little new. It's just on the fly. You probably saw me looking around real quick. We're gonna do a little thing called this or that. I'm just gonna run through a couple of questions. I want you to tell me this or that. Okay?
All right, let's hear it.
All right, dog or cat?
Dog.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Phone call or text?
Damn, text.
I'm gonna judge you on that. Oh, yeah.
Cardio or weights?
I'm sorry. What is it?
Cardio or weights?
Ooh, weights.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Ice cream or snow cone?
Ice cream.
Yeah, it's a good one. Mobile games or console games?
Oof.
Mobile.
Wow.
That's why the idea. Oof.
Someone's a dad.
My brother says he's a dad, and my brother does the exact same. He loves mobile games because he can do what he needs to do and he can play.
Exactly. A couple more. While walking or exercising, podcasts or music.
Music.
Okay. And iOS or Android.
Oh, iOS.
Yeah.
We got the most important one for last.
These are some questions that were. That was
could have
been controversial.
I think I review this and I'm not up to date with pop culture now that you're saying all these questions. I don't have Twitter installed and I don't log into Facebook. I'm like, oh man.
I was waiting for neither. Neither.
Yeah, that could have been an answer, I guess. But
It's
all right,
about-
Hector, it was a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us. Ryan, we will see you on the other side. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you guys.
Yeah.